Welcome back to the CS Podcast. I am your host, Chris Shanafelt, and I am now joined by Texas A&M alum and now quarterback for the Chicago Bears, Jerrod Johnson. Thanks for joining the show, Jerrod. How's it going?
Going good, man. Glad to be on, and yeah.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine. Now, I'm going to start this interview off with a pretty simple question, and as I mentioned, you attended Texas A&M, and coming out of high school, why did you feel that Texas A&M was the best fit for you?
I had a lot of ties there. That's an interesting story. My dad played at A&M from 1976 1980, so I was second generation, and I actually originally committed in basketball my sophomore year, and then they asked me to play football, and so I had a lot of deep ties, and I got to A&M and ended up picking football over basketball.
Now, I see you redshirted your first year in 2006, and you're able to see some time on the field in 2007, and it was in 2008 when the Aggies starting quarterback, Stephen McGee, suffered some injuries, and you were able to play in some games, a handful of games, I should say, more than that, and you threw for over 2,400 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Your name started to get really popular around College Station and just around the whole nation. Now, I know it was a while ago, but is there any chance you could tell us about that very first college football touchdown that you threw as an Aggie, Jerrod?
I guess I threw my first one out my redshirt freshman year when I got in. It was one of those things, once it kind of happened, it's cool to kind of, you dream about what college football is going to be like and have your first little taste of success, it's just a great feeling, but for me, kind of, when my career or just playing quarterback took another level, when Mike Sherman got there, it kind of instilled the passing game and the pro-style West Coast offense, and once I kind of got a good grasp of that, my career took off.
And it was in 2009 when you would compete with Ryan Tannehill for the starting quarterback job, and you won that competition. With the success that you had in 2008, did you expect to be the starter, and what was your reaction like when you were named the starting quarterback for the Aggies?
Yeah, I did. I had a lot of success. I had some moderate success at throwing the ball. We just weren't that, as a team, as a whole, as a group, we didn't have the success that we would have liked to at that point. But, it was really exciting. Ryan was always a great player, and I had a lot of confidence in my ability and what I brought to our offense. And, so once I got the call, I kind of expected it, but, it was a hard-fought competition, and I was, thankful when things went my way.
Now, I think it's safe to say that 2009 season was your best as you threw for over 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. You ran for over 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. Now, your name was starting to get into the Heisman conversation. I know you guys finished 6-6. I know you guys wanted more success than you had. But how were you personally able to have so much success that season?
I think I just fully understood, what it took to earn an offensive play the position at that level, what Coach Sherman wanted to do. Once I understood how to fly protection, I understood how to control the running game, how to do our stuff pre-snap at the line of scrimmage. I think my talent was finally able to show because I had complete control of the offense. I knew what to do from a mental standpoint, and then just showed from a physical standpoint once all that came together.
Now, after that type of season and just being able to do what you did at Texas A&M, how are you looked at around campus?
It was definitely interesting. You officially become kind of the face of the university and kind of like the beacon of hope at that point, because we had moderate success, but it was kind of like we're on the verge of having, major success. So, playing quarterback in a school like that, in a major university, you kind of get thrust into the spotlight and you kind of become the face of the program. And so it was definitely a change for me, but it's something I love. It's kind of, what you sign up for, and, I was kind of ready for the challenge.
Overall, how would you describe your experience at Texas A&M?
I loved it. I wouldn't trade it in for the world. As somebody who got this, whose dad talked about playing college football, and I got to kind of do the same thing he did, and the relationships and the people that I met while I was there. A&M's a special place. It's a special school, and I wouldn't trade my experiences there, good or bad, for anything else in the world.
Now, there's a quarterback that just finished his junior year at A&M. You might have heard of him. He goes by the name of Johnny Manziel, and many people think he has a chance of being the #1 overall pick in the 2014 NFL Draft. What are your thoughts on Johnny football as a former Aggie quarterback, and do you think he could have success at the next level in the NFL?
I definitely do. He's brought such a, he's kind of made A&M relevant again. It's for somebody who aspired for our program to get to that point nationally. It's good to see those guys have the success that they had. And, I know Johnny personally. I think he's a heck of an athlete. He's a special talent. I think he'll have a great career in the NFL.
Chris Shanafelt talking with former Texas A&M Aggies quarterback now with the Chicago Bears, Jerrod Johnson. Now, Jerrod, back to your career. You played in the East-West Shrine game in 2011. You entered the 2011 NFL Draft but went undrafted, and you were the #1 overall pick by the Hartford Colonials in the UFL. I know you weren't able to play for them, but what was that whole experience like? You know, getting ready for the NFL Draft, going undrafted, and then being picked up by a UFL team. What was that all like?
It was definitely interesting to say the least. You know, I was thankful for my opportunity, but to say it, if I didn't say it, you know, I was disappointed. I'd be lying to you. You know, it was once my senior year hit, it was a rough stretch for me. You know, I had shoulder surgery and just never really was quite the same from a throwing motion standpoint. And so for like a year and a half, 2 years of my life, I was lost on how to build a football. And you know, ultimately, that's kind of hard to do when you're going into senior year with expectations of preseason Big 12 Player of the Year and going to the combine and all that. And, you know, you get lost in how to throw the football. So, I mean, it's frustrating, you know, to think back on it because that was kind of the time when teams made their evaluations of me, and, you know, I just wasn't, you know, the same. And, you know, ultimately that was what caused me to go undrafted and kind of to fall off a lot of the lists that I was on. And so it was definitely a rough patch for me, but, you know, I think it all made me stronger.
Jerrod, you get a call from the Philadelphia Eagles saying that they're interested in signing you. Was that your ultimate goal at the time, was to, you know, play for an NFL team? And what was that like when you signed that first NFL contract?
It was great, you know, because at that point, you know, I was very eager to get to an NFL team and try to prove that I could still play the game. Because, like I said, post-surgery, it's been like kind of a long process. And Andy Reid gave me an opportunity because of his relationship with Coach Sherman, and I was there for 2 weeks. And, you know, he essentially sent me home and said, you know, your shoulder's just not exactly where we think it should be. You know, there's something going on there. You got to get that fixed if you want to have a chance, you know, playing in the NFL.
Since then, you spent some time with the Steelers, the Seahawks, and now the Chicago Bears. Just this past season, you spent some time on the Bears practice squad, and they let you go in September, and on December 30th, you signed back with the Chicago Bears. Now, I know you haven't been here for too long, but how are you enjoying it out here in Chicago, man? You liking it?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time, my experience there. You know, just kind of backtracking once I got released from Philadelphia, I moved to Dallas and was an elementary school PE teacher, and I rehabbed my shoulder from a mechanic standpoint for like, you know, 8 months with a guy by the name of Kevin Murray. So I pretty much relearned to throw a football again from scratch, and so that's kind of resulted in me getting re-signed by teams because, you know, I'm a completely different guy than the guy that's at the combine. And so, you know, went to Pittsburgh, went to Seattle, pulled my groin. You know, it's been some ups and downs, but, you know, Chicago called me, and I got that worked out, and, you know, Coach Trestman and you know, the GM and everybody was really impressed at kind of the guys they saw there as opposed to what they saw at the combine, and they gave me an opportunity, and, you know, that's all I can ask for. And, you know, I enjoyed my time in Chicago. It's a great city. You know, I really did enjoy the coaching staff and what they have to bring to the table. So, I mean, they let me go and told me that they had plans and wanted to re-sign me and kind of see, you know, where my potential could be. And so once kind of the end of the season came, they held their word, and they called me back. So here I am.
Are you excited to be back in Chicago?
Absolutely. You know, I think the world of Coach Trestman. I think the world of the staff. I like the guys on the team, Jay, Josh, all those guys. And I had nothing but a positive experience for the 4 weeks that I was there. So I was really eager and excited, you know, for the opportunity to come back. And I'm glad they signed me. And I'm excited to get there this spring.
And what are your goals and expectations for the 2014-2015 season, Jerrod?
You know, I've learned in this league, you know, there's a lot of things you can't control. All that I can control is my performances, you know, so I'm going to go out there and every time I get my reps and try to do the best that I can and, you know, make positive plays and move the ball down the field. Because ultimately that's all I can control, and so I'm just going to try to play well enough to where when I get in and when I get my opportunities that, you know, they see something in me. And that's, after that, you know, the chips fall how they fall.
You got that right. Now, last season, after Jay Cutler suffered some injuries and had to miss a handful of games, Josh McCown stepped in and performed like he was a top 5 NFL quarterback. He had a great season. Were you surprised at all by the type of season McCown had last year?
I wasn't, you know, because just being around as a practice squad guy, you just kind of, you know, you try to pick the old guys' brains and trying to see what they do. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for Jay and Josh and their process and how they handle, you know, preparing himself for a game. So from a preparation standpoint, Josh did a great job every week to prepare himself for that opportunity if it came. And so I learned a lot from that, you know, and so he prepared himself every week, even when Jay was playing, and then once his opportunity came, you know, he was ready for it. So I wasn't surprised by it because I saw how hard Josh worked on the daily, you know, to prepare himself for that opportunity.
Final question for you, Jerrod. On January 2nd, 2014, the Chicago Bears signed Jay Cutler to a 7-year contract. As a teammate of his, do you think Jay Cutler is, do you think he deserves this contract?
I think he does. Jay's a special talent, and like I said, he's sitting in a room watching how they go about their business and watching how Coach Cav and Coach Trestman and Josh and Jay, they all work together. I definitely think that, the franchise likes him. I think Jay's extremely talented, so I think, he's done enough in his career to deserve that kind of contract. And me, as a young quarterback, you aspire to have the success that he had to maybe put yourself in a situation to get something similar when your time comes. So, for me, I'm really happy for Jay. I think he deserves it, but at the end of the day, I think that I control my own destiny with how I play, and hopefully, I can be on the team and help the team win.
Jerrod, I really appreciate your time, man. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I really am wishing you nothing but the best. Before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to say to myself and our listeners?
Yeah, man, I'm thankful for bringing me on, and I've been through a lot over the past 3 years, and some ups, some downs, and kind of transformation of myself, and I finally feel that I'm healthy and in a good situation, and hopefully, I can put out a good performance, try to make a name for myself in this league.
Hey, Jerrod, like I said, man, I really appreciate your time. Wishing you nothing but the best, and I'm excited to see you down here in Bourbonnais for training camp. All right, man?
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.